Okay, welcome back, and thank you very much for your patience. Now, I would like to move on to item 4, towards a reformed listing system. Now, we have come to the main part of our meeting as we go through the reflection themes and consider the recommendations of experts. Before we start, I would like to establish a set of working methods for our discussion. First of all, the agenda of the meeting proposes that we start by discussing the overall approach that our working group may decide to recommend to the committee, that is item 4A. In the first instance, I would like to have a broad discussion, so I will invite states to make comments on the main approaches identified and, if possible, to indicate which approach they are supporting. As you can see on the screen, you have 4 different approaches mentioned there, and I would like to ask the states to mention their preferences among those approaches. While taking the floor, I would like to know already at this stage whether you could go along with a set of suggestions made to encourage broader participation of communities that is under paragraph 18 of working document 3. There are 5 of them, and expert representatives referred to them under the previous item, so I would not repeat the details. I'm asking the Secretariat to show only a summary of those proposals on the screen, which is there. So there are, as you can see, there are five items regarding the community involvement. Those 5 items apply across the board in a way, whether you choose repositioning, whether you choose fine-tuning, those things are applicable to each of those 2 cases and others as well. So I would like to hear your views about those 5 suggestions. Some of them are easy, some of them could take more time, but nonetheless, I would like to encourage the state parties to mention your reactions to those 5 suggestions from the experts. I'm not going to read this, but you can probably find them on your screen. Well, those suggestions, as you can see, do not necessarily impact the specifics of our recommendations. So this could be part of the results of part 1 of our meeting, if you can easily find a consensus. Well, for example, the establishment of arm's length body, which is C, which is the 3rd item on the screen. Now, we might need to specify what it is with more time. We might need more time to have detailed discussions on that one. So I'm not in a great hurry to push you for conclusions at this time. But what I would like to do is to try to see if we can come to an agreement, we can come to a consensus on any of those 5 points as early deliverables. So let's do it on a trial basis. Now, I would like to urge the states to be as concrete as possible when explaining their position, by emphasizing what aspects of the listing system your country wishes to see changed and improved. We will understand each other's position, and we should be able to start finding areas of convergence. We will then move to sub-item 4B, 4C, and 4D, before returning to 4A again on the overall approach. Another method that I would like to propose is to try to respond to specific requests made by the committee to deal with a limited number of issues as priority. For example, under sub-item 4B, our main focus should be on criterion R2. It will always be possible to return to discuss the future of other criterion when we meet in part 2 if necessary. The trial here is that we know that there have been a lot of discussions about R2. So my suggestion here would be to discuss R2 as a priority in this part 1 meeting of our working group. Or we can always come back to other criteria, 1, 3, 4, 5, and others, of course. But as a matter of priority, R2 can be discussed this time and see if we can come to a consensus on that particular item. Now, do you have any comments or questions on the working method? Can you hang on a moment? Sorry for taking time. I would like to say what I said once again. Now, I have already said that 5 suggestions from the committee involvement. We want to hear your views on those. But at the same time, I would also like to propose that, perhaps in this part 1 meeting, we need to discuss some priority items. And as I said, in relation to 4B, the priority item should be R2. And on for C, our priority should be the transfer and removal of elements. As we discussed idea before, and also as suggested by Mr. Curtis earlier, the issue of transfer and removal of elements, the transfer from one list to another, has been the focus of attention for quite some time. And as I remember, Ambassador Munir of Palestine mentioned this point earlier in the meeting. So I would suggest that this should be a priority among the 4C items. Now, among the 4D items, our main focus should be on the procedure for the extension of multinational files. Multinational files, Ambassador of Cuba mentioned this earlier, but this has caught attention from the floor in the previous meetings. So my suggestion here would be to have those 3 items as priority. I'm saying this because we may be able to achieve some consensus on these 3 items. For example, again, the transfer of element from one list to another may not be that easy. But it is also the case that this particular issue has caught a lot of attention in the past. So that's what I'm suggesting is to deal with those 3 items as priority items in our discussion. So I would like to hear your views on those 3 points as well. But as I said before, I'm not pushing too hard. I have pushed very hard on C4, C5 discussions before, but I'm not going to do it this time because you need time to think about your reactions. So what I would like to propose is to try to see if there is any convergence of views on those 3 items. And if not, we can discuss it again in September. And even if we recognize some convergence views on those 3 items, the member states can come up with their comments at a later stage. All I want to do is to have a clear sense of views, clear sense of convergence in the room on a trial basis. We will not say, as I have said in another meeting, sometimes if there is an agreement, no reopening. That is a strong plea from the chair. But this time, that does not apply. That does not apply. So, in short, in terms of the working method, what I would like to propose is for you in making statements about the general points. I would like to hear your views on three things. First of all, your preference between the options, and secondly, your reactions to the 5 points raised on community involvement, and finally, your reactions on the 3 points that I mentioned. By that way, I think we can have a very constructive discussion. But in any case, you have 5 for A, and then for B, for C, for D, and again for A. So you have ample time for expressing your views on those items. So that is the working method that I wish to propose. And if you have any comments or remarks or questions on the working method that I have just proposed, please, I'll be listening to the comments and questions now. Please, you have the floor. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I don't see any hand raised at this moment in time. Oh, no, Senegal. Senegal, you have the floor, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vous félicite pour votre élection à la tête du bureau et j'espère que ça se passera comme d'habitude pour vos compétences et votre rigueur. Alors, je voudrais revenir sur les communautés uniquement, en attendant les autres points. En ce qui concerne les communautés, elles sont, c'est vrai, au cœur de cette convention et sur la liste des éléments qui ont été énoncés, je souligne 2. Le premier élément, c'est par rapport au dossier d'inscription, comment le faire au niveau des langues nationales. L'expérience que j'ai eue là-dessus sur le terrain, c'est que quand on propose quelque chose déjà à l'inventaire, c'est en amont. En inventaire, déjà, on avait parlé avec eux dans leur langue pour pouvoir inscrire sur l'inventaire et pour pouvoir faire un dossier, on leur parle dans leur langue. Mais il est difficile, je le reconnais, de traduire le formulaire sur les langues nationales. Si je prends le cas du Sénégal, on est à une vingtaine de langues nationales, dont peut-être certains sont déjà codifiés par l'alphabétisation, d'autres ne le sont pas. Ce n'est pas évident donc de traduire ce formulaire en langue nationale. En plus, les communautés elles-mêmes ne sont pas souvent alphabétisées pour pouvoir lire dans leur langue. Elles peuvent parler. Donc, je pense que pour le moment, l'approche que nous avions, nous, en tout cas, mis en place, c'est de parler aux communautés dans leur langue, qu'elles expriment leur patrimoine qu'elles l'expriment dans leur langue, qu'on leur pose les questions dans leur langue, leur consentement dans leur langue, et tout ça se fait de manière assez inclusive. Je pense que ça, c'est un premier élément. Le deuxième élément, on a parlé de l'indépendance d'un organisme indépendant. Je ne sais pas exactement. Nous travaillons avec des ONG, nous travaillons avec des universitaires, nous travaillons avec d'autres parties prenantes, en tout cas, qui, à mon avis, sont plus ou moins indépendantes, même si elles sont impliquées quelquefois dans les communautés, même si elles ne sont pas praticiennes, elles sont impliquées dans la vie de l'élément. Alors, qu'est-ce que nous voulons maintenant par organisme? Si nous prenons le cas rapidement d'une autre convention, c'est des organismes consultatifs, comme l'UCN ou l'ICOMOS qui font un travail sur le terrain. Est-ce que nous voulons, si vous voulez, pour la convention, trouver un organisme affilié, un organisme consultatif pour faire ce travail ou pas? Voilà la question que je pose. Mais en tout cas, en ce qui concerne l'inclusion des communautés, il faut vraiment avoir une approche inclusive d'amont en aval, depuis l'inventaire jusqu'à l'inscription de certains éléments, que ces communautés soient pas associées parce qu'elles sont elles-mêmes dépositaires de leur patrimoine, qu'on les retrouve sur le terrain et puis qu'on puisse quand même s'informer de ce qu'elles reconnaissent comme leur patrimoine et leur équipe. Je m'en arrête là. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now, before going further, let me just make one point clear. We have not yet gone into the substantive discussions yet. My suggestion is I have made some procedural suggestions, and I would like to hear your views on that. But in terms of the substantive discussions on overall approaches, you will have time later. So please concentrate on your comments about the methodology that I propose at this point in time, and we can come back to general points at a later stage. Now, we have 4 countries raising hand. Let me just go to Poland first, to be followed by China. Poland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We fully support the proposed methodology. That is first to decide on the options regarding general approach to the full reforming reflection, and we would like at this point already to state that we support option B on repositioning, and more details will come in due course of our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, China, to be followed by Burkina Faso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My delegation would first of all like to congratulate you on your election of the chairmanship for this working group meeting. Talking about the methodology of our discussion, my delegation would have no objection to the priorities you just proposed for the item 4B, 4C, and 4D. However, regarding to the 5 points related to the community participation, we are kind of a little bit confused. We are wondering on what basis are we going to discuss about the community participation, since we believe that the participation of the communities are just related to each and every stage of the listing mechanism. So why we just talking about these 5 points? So we would like to some further clarifications, either from you or from the Secretariat. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I will come back to your point later, but let me now give the floor to Burkina Faso, to be followed by Norway. Burkina Faso, please. Okay, well, sorry, my mistake. Burkina Faso lowered their hand, and therefore, Norway to be followed by Kuwait. Norway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to your election. As Norway has commented earlier, we would like to express our strong support to the reflection work on the listing mechanisms. We would like to thank and commend the expert committee and the Secretariat for its consistently excellent work on this issue. Norway supports the approach of reposition of the listing systems, since we think this option seems to best answer the diverse challenges of the mechanisms of the Convention, especially the need to clarify the roles between the 2 lists and the register, and to reposition them in relation to each other. The most important challenges is to find ways to ensure more direct involvement of communities to place them at the center of heritage safeguarding. We therefore support all 5 points listed in point 18, although the suggestions need to be further described, like, for instance, how the arm's length body should be understood. The community's opinion should be heard by the state parties, and it is the communities themselves who identified, determine the value of, and safeguard their living heritage. the divergent voices should be heard. It is important that community can use the local indigenous languages, as also stressed by Mrs. Cunnings. A more formal role or mechanisms for communities and NGOs' involvement in these processes, including evaluation, should be identified. We support that the working group explore the understood potential of Article 18 to develop a safe space for communities, NGOs, experts, and civil societies actors to share information on monitoring of safeguarding plans and safeguarding methods. This would be at the heart of the convention and gives the wanted lighter and possibility more regular sharing of information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Kuwait to be followed by Netherlands. Kuwait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we fully support the methodologies, understanding, of course, that the details are to be forthcoming. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Netherlands to be followed by Slovakia. Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your appointment as chair. And we would also like to thank Japan for the support for this important meeting. The Netherlands feels, of course, that community involvement is a very important topic, but at the moment, we have some difficulty with grasping the implications of the 5 propositions. So like China, we would want to hear a bit more explanation before we can choose or tell you some more about our position. Thank you. And we think it's also important to not forget the coherence of the system. So we would like to discuss it in that matter as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Slovakia to be followed by Cuba. Slovakia, please.
Bonjour et merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, chers collègues. La Slovaquie remercie beaucoup le secrétariat pour cette large initiative qui a pour objectif d'améliorer le processus d'inscription et le sauvegarde du patrimoine vivant. Un travail très important a été déjà accompli par les experts qui ont formulé plusieurs recommandations très pertinentes. On connaît tous très bien les points faibles des mécanismes actuels. C'est pourquoi il est vraiment important de souligner le caractère expert du processus et accentuer l'objectif commun qu'on a tous de trouver l'harmonie dans le processus décisionnel. La liste représentative est la plus visible, mais la Convention connaît d'autres outils qui, de notre point de vue, sont aussi très importants pour le sauvegarde du patrimoine. On considère qu'il est nécessaire de soutenir le rôle du registre des bonnes pratiques de sauvegarde. C'est pourquoi nous soutenons plutôt l'option 2, repositionnement, pour que la liste représentative devienne plus ouverte et plus inclusive et qui permettrait une meilleure interconnexion entre les 3 mécanismes. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to give the floor to Cuba to be followed by Austria. Cuba, please. Switzerland?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Je pense que nous sommes un peu perdus et nous sommes en train de mélanger. Je voudrais m'exprimer en premier moment, donc nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec votre proposition de méthode de travail, mais nous avons l'impression que nous sommes dans ce point du débat, mais à partir des autres explications et des autres interventions, nous sommes en train un peu de parler des questions du fond, mais en premier moment, nous voudrions dire que nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec votre proposition de méthode de travail et on voudrait partager aussi notre préoccupation parce que, bien sûr, nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec la participation plus large des communautés, mais nous ne pouvons pas oublier que la Convention, c'est une institution et tout ce système, c'est un mécanisme intergouvernemental. Nous avons déjà une participation très importante et un niveau très haut, un niveau d'experts que c'est très important aussi pour tous les processus d'évaluation. Mais on ne peut pas oublier la nature de l'UNESCO, de la Convention et des systèmes à niveau d'experts. Et pour nous, c'est un peu bizarre. Nous avons aussi, comme l'exprimait la Chine et des autres interventions, intervenants. Et pour nous, c'est très important d'avoir plus d'informations pour dire que nous sommes en condition de créer un nouvel organe pour l'évaluation à niveau des communautés ou de créer d'autres mécanismes parce que, à mon avis, je connais un peu le système de convention de l'UNESCO et la convention de patrimoine immatériel, c'est la convention plus moderne et le système plus stable que nous avons. Je ne sais pas, je suis sûre d'être d'accord que nous avons besoin des organes d'experts comme l'ICOMOS ou les UISM à les modèles de la convention de 1972 parce que la convention de 2003, c'est une convention qui a son propre histoire, son propre mécanisme et c'est la convention plus moderne qui donne à la communauté un voix plus forte que le reste des conventions de l'UNESCO. Merci, Monsieur le Président, et votre félicitation pour la conduction de cette excellente réunion. Merci.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Now, Austria to be followed by Switzerland. Austria, please.
Good morning, everybody. Dear Chairperson, first, please let me take this opportunity to thank the Secretariat and the government of Japan to make the exchange on this important development possible. Our thanks also go to the experts of the Category 6 meeting who elaborated the different options for the improvement of the listing systems, as well as the Secretariat for the excellent documents. I agree with my colleague from Cuba who has just mentioned that we are on the one hand discussing methodology only, but also some substantial aspects. For us, among the most important issues to be discussed are the monitoring and follow-up of inscribed elements involving the communities, of course, the procedure for the removal and the transfer of elements, and the contribution of safeguarding measures to sustainable development. We also agree that with the expert meeting that the greatest weakness of the current inscription process is the heavy political and diplomatic context of new inscriptions, while reaffirming the overall success of the upstream dialogue process. The relationship between the committee and the evaluation body should be discussed. We hope that a resilient and viable solution can be found here, and our so-called gentleman's agreement does not seem to be extensive enough. I agree that the term is not the best one and we might find a better one. Our delegation is in favor of keeping the upstream dialogue process in the examination of nominations. However, some fine-tuning may be required, for instance, concerning a clearer definition about the minor issues that will release the process. Some of these have been mentioned already in earlier meetings, but the clear guideline will help both the evaluation body and the committee in their deliberation. As safeguarding is at the heart of the convention, we would agree that a simplification of inscription in the Register of Good Safeguarding Practices should be considered to make it more accessible to communities themselves, of course, also allowing audiovisual tools as suggested just before. The Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development are of significant importance for ICH. Thus, contributions of the elements to sustainability should be recognized in the nomination files. Furthermore, recent committee discussions, as well as the debate in the expert meeting of May this year, have revealed that a follow-up, some form of monitoring of inscribed elements is necessary. The proposed way of using an arm's length online platform of intangible cultural heritage in which communities themselves are involved in the monitoring, or a network of inscribed elements, as has been suggested, could be an interesting idea, and a more specific proposal on the functioning of this platform will highly be appreciated. Some colleagues have mentioned that before already, from China, from the Netherlands, and others. Further discussion is also needed on the issue of a transfer and removal of elements of the list by establishing a clear and specific procedures and criteria. In this context, we might also discuss possible consequences for the evaluation of new nomination files if the reporting duties have not been fulfilled by the states parties. To sum up, in terms of the documents provided, our delegation is in favor of combining elements from option A, the fine-tuning approach, with some elements from option B, the repositioning approach. Simplification of some criteria, like for instance, R2, yes, of course. However, what we would not appreciate is an approach that allows for a nearly unlimited number of inscriptions, including elements that are not in line with the overall objectives of the convention, but rather pursuing like touristic, economic, or even nationalist aims. In the end, we have to ensure that all elements meet the spirit of the convention, which also means that they uphold the values of UNESCO, like fostering peace and human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, as have several people mentioned, I was trying to focus on the methodology first, but obviously we have some statements already on the substantive issues. So let me respond to the points made by China or the Netherlands very briefly and see if that is okay for them. Now, before going further, I will make sure that all of you will have the floor, but please bear with me for a moment. Now, regarding the 5 suggestions on community involvement and also the 3 priority items, this represents our suggestion to find any convergence view in this part 1 session. And it is of course true that among the 5 items, arm's length body, you need a lot more explanations before you decide whether you can take it or not. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So those are 5 items and also 3 priority issues for discussion today to see if there is any convergence of views. If you say, okay, well, the arm's length bodies, we need a lot more time to discuss it, that's fine, that's fine. This is a trial. This is a trial. I'm not planning for any particular item on the state members at this moment. Those are simply suggestions, and if there's any convergence view, let's make it one of the achievements in this session, in this part 1. But if not, we can always take more time. So on that kind of relaxed basis, I hope you can agree to the methodology that I proposed. And on that one, before going to the substantive discussions, on that one, do you actually have any opposition to what I am proposing as methodology? I recognize several hands, but if anybody has a serious problem with what I'm suggesting, can you physically raise hands so that I can give the floor? Okay, for the timing, I don't see any opposition with this kind of hand raising to the methodology that I have proposed. So let's work on that basis. Let's work on that basis, and we will get into substantive discussions. For example, you can make references to 5 points or 3 major points in the discussions in 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D, and back again for A. So you have ample opportunities to discuss those items. But again, I'm saying that I'm not forcing anybody to accept those things. No, it's not that. This is just a trial on the part of the chair to see if there's any deliverable possible in this part 1. Okay, thank you very much for your understanding at this moment in time. Let's work on that basis. Now, honestly, before starting substantive discussions on 4A, I was going to ask the secretary to intervene. So if you don't mind, I do recognize several hands raised right now, but do you mind my giving the floor to Mr. Curtis at this moment for further explanations on item 4A? Or if there's any delegation who wants to speak before Mr. Curtis, please let me know. And otherwise, I have already Switzerland, Brazil, Portugal, Estonia, Sweden registered in my list. We will come back to you for sure. But before that, can I give the floor to Mr. Curtis? Okay, Mr. Curtis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. So I see we are under item 4A now on the overall approach. First of all, I would just like to remind the working group members that the relevant decision of the committee, or the most relevant decision of the committee for this item, is decision 13-10 in its paragraph 10, which explains the main reasons, at least initially, why the open intergovernmental working group was called for to reflect on the listing system of the convention. And allow me to cite: the working group, the intergovernmental open-ended working group, would be called to reflect on inter alia the nature and purposes of the lists and the register established under the convention, and on the relevance of the various criteria for each of these mechanisms, in particular criterion R2, in relation to the nature and purpose of the representative list. So the working document 3 presents the 4 main approaches as identified by experts, and which were also presented and discussed under the previous item. And the proposal, based on what was the large majority of experts, were for the working group to consider 2 main approaches, which we have called tentatively fine-tuning and repositioning, and bearing in mind that these are not discrete or mutually exclusive approaches, but guidelines to help understand the approaches taken towards the listing mechanisms. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much. So I would now like to go back to the list of speakers. We are in the discussions on 4A, substantive items. Now, Switzerland to be followed by Brazil. Switzerland, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, bonjour à tout le monde. Puisque c'est la première fois que la délégation suisse prend la parole, nous tenons à remercier le secrétariat et les experts qui ont contribué à cette réflexion. Nous avons devant nous une excellente base de travail et nous nous réjouissons des échanges à venir. Nous souhaitons également remercier le gouvernement du Japon pour sa précieuse contribution rendant possible ce processus. Comme l'indique l'image choisie par le secrétariat pour illustrer notre réunion, une photographie d'un mouvement horloger, il sera nécessaire de faire preuve de beaucoup de patience, de savoir-faire et de minutie dans nos travaux. La délégation suisse soutient la méthode proposée et puisque nous sommes déjà pleins dans le débat de fond, nous saisissons l'occasion pour esquisser notre proposition par rapport aux questions posées comme l'ont fait nos précédeurs. Les listes dont nous allons parler sont des outils de la Convention, des moyens importants dont la grande visibilité permet de soutenir la sauvegarde et la promotion du patrimoine culturel immatériel. Ce sont des vecteurs de communication selon nous qui sont précieux au niveau international tout comme au niveau national. À ce titre, nous souhaitons souligner l'importance de la qualité des candidatures et de la pertinence des éléments inscrits. Cette qualité doit être basée sur le rôle central des communautés et sur celui tout aussi important des experts. Le respect du travail de l'organe d'évaluation ou toute autre forme d'expertise nous semble à cet égard essentiel. Dans nos travaux, il conviendra aussi de garder en tête que les objectifs de cette révision sont multiples et pas forcément toujours convergents. Ils se distinguent en termes de contenu, accessibilité des listes, maintien de l'esprit de la Convention, développement de la collaboration, mais aussi en termes de procédures et de ressources disponibles auprès des États et le secrétariat, nombre de candidatures et priorisations. Dans ce sens, nous souhaitons rappeler en préambule, comme l'a fait tout à l'heure M. Curtis, que les approches présentées, en particulier celles de l'ajustement et du repositionnement, ne sont pas exclusives. Nous souhaiterions donc inviter à considérer l'ensemble des propositions présentées sous ces 2 approches pour trouver notre propre chemin. La Suisse privilégie en principe l'approche de l'ajustement, tout en incluant certaines idées classées sous l'approche du repositionnement. Nous pouvons également d'ores et déjà exprimer un soutien de base pour les 5 propositions concernant l'implication des communautés, tout en soulignant que les propositions C, D, E devront être concrétisées encore, comme l'ont dit d'autres orateurs avant moi. Nous allons amener plus de propositions, plus de détails plus tard dans la discussion sous les sections distinctes. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now, Brazil to be followed by Portugal. Brazil, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. D'abord, permettez-moi de vous remercier pour la manière dont vous êtes en train de conduire cette réunion, aussi le secrétariat pour nous avoir donné cette opportunité de discuter des points très importants pour la vie de notre convention. J'avais demandé la parole encore quand il s'agissait de manifester un soutien à votre proposition pour la méthodologie de travail. Donc, c'est pour vous dire que nous soutenons votre proposition, Monsieur le Président. J'en profite aussi pour remercier les experts pour leur intervention. Cela nous aidera beaucoup à arriver à notre réunion du comité en décembre avec des idées plus précises, plus claires. Étant membre et du comité et du bureau du comité, nous suivons le thème avec beaucoup d'intérêt. Comme j'avais dit quand je demandais la parole, c'était surtout pour manifester le soutien à votre proposition pour la méthode de travail. Mais dès qu'on est déjà entré, il me semble, dans une discussion du point de vue plus précis de certaines propositions, j'en profite pour souligner un élément qui pour nous, pour le Brésil, est très important. Parfois, nous discutons avec notre Institut du patrimoine, même ici entre nous, entre les collègues, les thèmes de liste de la Convention 2003, de la Convention 72. Et il y a toujours un point qui nous semble un peu oublié, que c'est la question de la sauvegarde, de la protection. Parfois, nous avons l'impression qu'on donne beaucoup d'importance à l'inscription, mais moins à la protection des éléments. Nous savons tous qu'aujourd'hui, pour une série de questions inhérentes à la modernité, il y a plusieurs manifestations culturelles qui sont à risque, qui sont en train de disparaître. Et il faut le protéger. Dans notre convention, nous avons la chance que la sauvegarde est très bien reçue normalement. C'est un consensus dans notre convention que la protection, c'est une chose positive. Une liste des éléments en risque n'est pas un problème dans cette convention pour aucun pays. Donc, pour être bref, seulement souligner ce point-là, que dans la discussion de tous les thèmes dans laquelle on va entrer maintenant, la mobilité entre les 10, etc., il faudrait en tenir compte, c'est-à-dire tenir compte du fait que la sauvegarde, la protection des éléments est un élément très important et qu'il faut lui donner le poids qu'il mérite. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Portugal to be followed by Estonia. Portugal, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and first of all, congratulations on your election. Secondly, thanking all that are contributing to this exercise and that we are looking forward to our detailed discussions. We support your methodology. And I would like to briefly point on your question on the overall approaches. Portugal favors, as Switzerland, a fine-tuning overall approach, but not exclusive of elements of the repositioning overall approach, in the sense that we also believe that it is important to improve the relationships between the two lists and the register in order to establish a more dynamic, open-ended system. And we also really, as Brazil was just stressing, believe that it is important to enhance the safeguarding potential of the mechanisms and specifically of the urgent safeguarding lists. That will be my preliminary comments on the 5 suggestions on community involvement. We share the views expressed by China, Netherlands, Cuba, but we are very open to listen more and have a fruitful discussion on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Estonia to be followed by Japan. Estonia, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And congratulations on your election. Estonia believes that it is important to further clarify the purpose and aims of each mechanism of a listing system. As regards the scale between fine-tuning and repositioning, Estonia is of opinion that the register of good safeguarding practices definitely would benefit from a repositioning approach, but at the same time, as concerns the other lists, perhaps the answer would be something between repositioning and fine-tuning. We believe that register of good safeguarding practices really needs most changes, and it could also be beneficial to initiate separate reflection on the implementation of Article 18 in its entirety, in order to discuss also other lighter ways of promoting and disseminating good safeguarding practices. We have also noted that over the years, the procedures have become heavier and forms more detailed. I'm sure with a hope to make them clearer, but this has not always been the result, as many communities are still struggling with them. And sometimes it also seems that the forms demand more than the actual criteria entails. Therefore, we should also think about reducing the complexity of the forms in order to make the listing mechanisms more accessible to communities around the world. We believe that in the listing system, we need to prioritize the safeguarding of ICH and to think how to really make urgent safeguarding list more attractive for states parties, including through financial and expert assistance provided to communities. But we should also think about the ceiling mechanism and the possible ways of how to deal with existing competition between mechanisms. The important guiding principle in our discussions should be how to enhance the involvement of communities in all the processes we are discussing. And this concerns the proposals contained in paragraph 18 of the document. We believe that it's very easy to wholeheartedly support proposals A and C, but for our proposals that concern some sort of formal mechanisms and establishing of some structures, we would also appreciate more information on really to understand what is the benefit of, let's say, formal mechanisms in place to submit potential proposals to states parties. What is their current impediment that accredited NGOs or community representatives or academia can't submit these proposals now to states parties? I reserve my further comments on specific criteria for the later stage in this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, you can come back on the criteria at a later stage. Now, so Japan to be followed by the Netherlands. Japan, please.
Thank you for giving me the floor, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Japan would like to thank the Secretariat effort in organizing this open-ended intergovernmental working group in the framework of the global reflection on the listing mechanism. We have been supporting the process as we believe that this is an important process to improve the current system, and we are looking forward to have a very fruitful discussion on different topics such as evaluation criteria and the transfer and removal of cases from the list. The increasing number of cases examined for the intangible heritage has gradually been putting pressure on the entire evaluation process. Japan supports the repositioning approach, as we believe that it will be very hard for the Secretariat to keep the current pace of evaluation with the existing number of files and backlogs. As the main purpose of the 2003 Convention is to safeguard intangible heritage, we believe that it could be beneficial to increase the number of heritage and thus encourage the community to recognize their heritage. For that purpose, we need to create a balanced system by simplifying the evaluation criteria without damaging the core purpose of the Convention. We are basically favorable to the broader participation of communities expressed under paragraph 18 of the working documents. And as the other speakers have suggested, I guess that we still need to clarify some components such as the arm's length process, but it can be done in later stage. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Netherlands to be followed by Sweden. Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Netherlands would like to thank the experts for their valuable reports and the Secretariat for the clear documents. We believe this discussion of experts and state parties on the listing mechanism, the follow-up of inscribed elements, the evaluation of elements is of great importance for the future and the impact of the Convention. The Netherlands has been rather slow in nominating for the list. When we ratified capacity building, exchanging good practices of safeguarding, cultural diversity of inventories, cross-cutting themes like ICH and education, ICH and emergencies were and are more important for the Netherlands. The Dutch policy on intangible cultural heritage has always been to work on safeguarding, visibility, respect for the cultural and social meaning and the significance of ICH, to work bottom up with communities, to hear from them how they would and could safeguard their ICH and what support they need. Capacity building and exchange of experiences of safeguarding were and are important for us. Nominations to the list are meant to support safeguarding, mobilize international cooperation, and to raise awareness among state parties and communities around the world about the diversity and importance of living heritage and the need to safeguard it. Nominations in the first place have to support communities in their safeguarding. When the Convention states that communities are at the center, then we have to facilitate and act and take their input seriously. We know that communities are not satisfied and their expectations are not completely fulfilled at the moment. For the Netherlands, this is an important sign as communities, groups, and individuals are at the center of the Convention, like said before. We would like to act on this and not only use warm words on the importance of communities. They could be more involved in the listing system so that their challenges and needs are being met. The Netherlands would like to discuss the different possibilities to improve the listing mechanism, the issues in relation to the different lists, evaluation of nomination, monitoring, etc., are interrelated, and we have to reflect on them as a whole. So are we in the box of fine-tuning or repositioning? we think it is more helpful to look closely at what is necessary to improve things. As a member of the committee, the Netherlands has expressed the view that there could be a more dynamic, inclusive listing mechanism with more interaction between the lists, lighter procedures where possible, with a possible sunset clause for the representative list, reflection on R2, etc. Direct community participation and NGO participation could play an important role in listing and evaluation in committee meetings, etc. That would also help to get more geographical balance in the mechanisms. We would also like to mention the importance of the urgent safeguarding list and the fact that it is underused, and the same goes for the register. These tools are important for the convention and the community involvement. I think this is it for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Sweden to be followed by Colombia. Sweden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sweden attaches great importance to the 2003 Convention and to safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. We believe that this reflection process on the listing mechanism has been very relevant, and we would like to therefore extend our sincere thanks to the esteemed experts from all over the world that took part in the deliberations, as well as the government of Japan for your continued support to this process. We also appreciate, as always, the hard work and high quality work of the Secretariat of the Convention. Regarding the overall approach to the listing mechanisms, we note that the experts were in favor of the option fine-tuning and repositioning. At the same time, most of them subscribed to a combination of these two proposals. We also see many advantages in these two options and would prefer such a combination. However, we have specific questions on some of the points and would like to discuss them further. We will come back to our views on how to increase community involvement, an issue most urgent and important for us. And we also look forward to later discussing other questions, such as the suggested rewriting of certain criteria. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Colombia, and after Colombia, I would like to stop for brief observations. So Colombia, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, please.
Perfect. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on your chairmanship, and I'm sure that with you, this meeting will go very smoothly and we will arrive to some consensus and important decisions. Also to thank the Secretariat and the experts for these important documents that they have given to us and that for sure give us the material to discuss this important matter. For Colombia, the fine-tuning, it's a very likely option, but as many colleagues have said before, we think that many elements, not only of the repositioning option, but of the other two options as well, may be integrated and can be taken into account to make the listing mechanism more efficient. We definitely have some questions about the applicability of each option, and in that sense, we will have specific questions after. But just to be very brief, I would like to join my colleague from Brazil, highlighting that the safeguard is the most important thing of this convention, and sometimes because this is a mechanism and we are discussing the procedure, maybe we forget it, but for sure this mechanism has to be a better response for the safeguarding, and in that sense, there's the importance of the participation of the community for sure, for what we have also the responsibility to have an applicability at the national level that can find the answers to the community, especially language-wise, as the colleague from Senegal mentioned it very clearly, I think. And also, as the ambassador of Cuba said, it's very important to bear in mind that this convention is the most modern one, and it has a very interesting mechanism that opposes the external experts' view and more of a local and community expertise that we have to have into account. And I think that's one of the strengths of the convention. In that sense, and to close my remark, Colombia believes that this is a very important opportunity for the state parties
to also evaluate ourselves, evaluate how we are managing this convention. We have many examples of other conventions that we want to do or what we don't want to do regarding these nominations and the evaluation process. So I would really invite all of us to have this in mind and to be very thorough in what we want for this methodology, the revision of the listing process, be very ethical. As the colleague of Austria, I think, said, the gentleman's agreement or another term, we have to bear it very much in mind. And we have to seek truly for the safeguarding on all the heritage of the humanity. So thank you very much. And we are hoping to have a very good discussion in these following days. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to China, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. Thanks again for guiding us. My delegation would like to share with all our colleagues some of our brief observations on the overall approach to the listing mechanism. First of all, since the adoption of the convention in 2003 and its official operation in 2008, we are happy to see that the listing mechanism has been functioning greatly and has made a very great contribution to implementing the objectives and the principles of the convention. We are happy to see that there are already 584 elements inscribed or selected corresponding to 131 countries. And we believe that the listing mechanism has already made very great input to raising the visibility and awareness of the safeguarding of in ICH and gaining more and more and wider consensus worldwide. However, what is coming following with the listing mechanism is that we are continuously encountering more and more challenges and more transversal or cross-cutting issues. Due to various reasons, be it at national level or at the perspective of the UNESCO level, including due to the limited human or financial resources, we seem to have encountering huge challenges. And since the very first cycle of the listing mechanism, since the very first examination work of the first subsidiary body, we have been always reflecting on the listing mechanism. So at this juncture, we are now coming together to do the reflections on the listing mechanism. We believe it is of great importance, of great significance. Because we believe that it is related very closely to the healthy and sustainable development of the 2003 convention. And therefore, we would like to extend our sincere thanks to the Secretariat, as well as all the experts involved in the expert meeting to make their inputs to the presentations, and which have laid a very vivid, very solid foundation for our discussion and debate today. And we also like to thank the government of Japan for your contribution to make this working group possible. And we are now so that we can get together to pool our wisdom to the reflection on the listing mechanism to make any improvement to the convention. Having said all this, my delegation would like to prefer not to just position ourselves on either the fine-tuning or the repositioning side, because we believe that some of the recommendations or the suggestions on these two approaches are kind of very complementary to each other and also very important. No matter what we choose, be it fine-tuning or repositioning, all of these recommendations would finally be reflected into very specific measures in order to improve our current situation. And meanwhile, when we are making reflections on the current listing mechanism, we would also like to call upon all the colleagues to keep thinking on ourselves from either from the perspective of the state parties or the perspective of the committee or the secretariat, whether we have already done enough or what we haven't done yet to make the listing mechanism working perfectly. For instance, according to the Articles 7 and 18 of the Convention, according to the function of the committee, it is described in the Convention that the committee should provide guidance on best practices and make recommendations on measures for the safeguarding of ICH. And the committee shall accompany the implementation of such projects, programs, and activities by disseminating best practices using means to be determined by it. And I believe that we might have a lot more to do on this point. So having said this, we would like to, Mr. Chairman, we would like to make our own contributions to make our inputs to those specific issues when we are discuss on the following items later. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much. You will have ample opportunities to do that. Thank you. Now, because I don't see any hand raised at this moment, let me just offer my observations and also another question that I wanted to raise. Now, in terms of observations, my impression is that there were slightly bigger number of states supporting repositioning than the fine-tuning. But nevertheless, many delegations have made it quite clear that we should not stick to the definition of fine-tuning and repositioning too much. Rather, we should focus on individual measures. Yes, that is absolutely understood. But at the same time, what I wanted to see is the general atmosphere in the room. I want to see if the room is more inclined towards repositioning or fine-tuning. On that, the results are not very clear, but I have to say that there were slightly bigger number of countries supporting repositioning, but many have said that we have to discuss individual items, taking items from fine-tuning and also from repositioning. So we will proceed to that stage of discussions. Now, another point that I wanted to make here is that, as I said earlier, there are 5 points regarding the community involvement. Now, we have heard many points in relation to that, but because this 4A session is probably the place where we can hear views about those 5 points, because we are getting into discussions on 4B, 4C, 4D. Of course, there are some items relevant to discussions there, but nonetheless, when you can, if I can ask general comments about those 5 suggestions, mostly from the experts on community involvement, and this is the time to do so. We have a bit less than 10 minutes before 1. So could I just solicit at this moment if there's any delegation, if any delegation wishes to make comments on the 5 items, on community involvement specifically. Yeah, the Secretariat will be showing the 5 points again on the screen. So if we can have any comments from any delegations who have not talked about the 5 points in terms of community involvement. I would very much like to welcome any views on this point. Okay, Poland to be followed by Sweden. Poland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to support all 5 points. The way they are formulated quite generally here on the screen. And of course, we would love to have more detailed discussion regarding each of these points, because we could observe that there are some hesitations regarding how these points A, B, C, D, or E can be introduced in practice, how they can be entered into force. And of course, there are many ways to meet different constraints of countries, of the variety of languages, of different obstacles that we may encounter. But we believe that there is a space here at this meeting to discuss these details in order to take seriously, as our colleague from the Netherlands says, not only say warm words about the involvement of the communities, but really take this opportunity to turn these words into practice. So we strongly support the general direction, and we avail ourselves for future discussion about the details on how to make them vivid and functioning in the system of the conventions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Sweden and Colombia, and let us stop there because we are approaching 1 o'clock. So I would now like to give the floor to Sweden to be followed by Colombia. Sweden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 5 suggestions on community involvement, much in the lines of Poland and Netherlands and others, we think that these are very interesting suggestions. We would definitely support the overall direction of them. Sweden is a strong supporter of true and strong involvement of civil society. The practitioners and bearers have a fundamental role to play in ensuring that intangible cultural heritage remains living and dynamic. We also place great importance on that all practitioners and bearers can read about their heritage in their own language. We think that the creation of new mechanisms to further involve civil society, communities, and inscribed elements, such as an arm's length body and a special forum, definitely could benefit the implementation of the convention and our discussions to a great extent, but would require a bit more information on how this would be carried out. So to sum up, Mr. Chair, we can lend our support to options A and C and would need more clarification on B, D, and E at this stage. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for clear indication. Now I give the floor to Colombia, and I understand Senegal wants to take the floor. So let's finish our session this morning with Senegal. So, Colombia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most in line with my previous colleagues, we do very much support these proposals made by the experts. In Colombia, we have been promoting the participation of the communities in many ways already for 10 years. We have a very strong policy. We have lots of lessons learned also and mistakes as well. So I think it's a very interesting discussion, but we will for sure want a little bit more of detail about the implementation and the viability of these proposals, especially because the resources are some of the biggest challenges at a national level, and also how to guarantee that this participation can be also shared between all the other members of the convention. But we would like to thank very much the experts, because this is a very interesting approach, for sure. It's one of the most important parts of this convention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Senegal, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais m'excuser d'avoir plongé dans le fond tout à l'heure, alors qu'en réalité, j'avais déjà soutenu la méthodologie. Sur les 5, je suis d'accord, je soutiens un peu ces éléments. Hein? Je soutiens ces éléments, mais la mise en œuvre, effectivement, a posé quelques quoi. Je me suis attardé un peu sur le C. sur l'établissement d'un organe indépendant. Il faut vraiment peut-être donner un peu plus de temps pour discuter sur cette question. Nous avons un organe déjà d'évaluation. Comme le disait l'ambassadeur du Brésil, c'est une convention excellente sur beaucoup de choses qui vraiment a été considérée à l'époque même comme une convention pour l'Afrique parce que nous étions sous-représentés sur la 72. Alors, je pense que l'organe indépendant, il faut vraiment qu'on discute là-dessus. Comment mettre un organe indépendant à côté de l'organe d'évaluation que nous avons. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I think we have debated on the overall approach for quite some time. And we have a very good idea about how the room feels about this overall approach. So I would like to conclude the discussions on the overall approach and move on to the next item in the afternoon. Now, I can assure you that we can come back to 4A again after we discuss four individual items, 4A, 4B, C, D. So we will come back to 4A again. So, yeah, please take the floor. If there's anything else that you wanted to say, please take the floor at that time. Okay, now I would like to conclude the morning session and we'll come back at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you very much and bon appetit.